The Australian consumer watchdog, kind of like an arm of the Australian government or a subsidiary of the Australian government, has said that electric cars are not actually emissions free. Interesting. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. I'm Sam Evans. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the new subscribers. Do you agree with this statement? Straight up, just got to know, what is your opinion? Are EVs emissions free in your opinion? Now, you already know my opinion. I believe they are. In fact, I believe they're incredibly amazing. Key reason here, right? EV battery packs, they are not simply thrown into the waste. Anyone who believes that, I'm sorry, but anyone who actually believes that idea is either one of two things: stupid or uneducated. And it's okay to be uneducated. However, if you're both stupid and uneducated, then I've got very grave concerns for you, because you probably work in the media. The media, they have perpetuated this idea that EVs are not environmentally friendly, that they aren't emissions free. I mean, now the Australian government, I should say, has bought into this narrative. I don't think they've actually done any research. The truth is here that EV battery packs are incredibly valuable. In fact, about 99% of what goes into an EV battery pack is recyclable, and they are being recycled. They're worth a lot of money. Companies right now are making hundreds of millions of dollars recycling battery packs, and they certainly do not and will never ever be thrown out. In fact, if you know of a place where there aren't any used EVs that are just sitting there, well, tell me, because I'll go and grab it and I'll make some money. Or don't tell me, make the money yourself. Just hold on to it. And there is actually recycling places you can take your EV to now in almost every country around the world. They will not just throw it into the bin, that's for sure. Those materials are incredibly valuable, and the ability and the tools to recycle them do now exist. So that's a myth that we need to dispel before we get into this conversation of whether or not EVs are actually emissions free. Keep in mind, once those new materials go into this new battery pack, when they've been recycled from the old one, well, eventually those will be used again and again and again and again until the entire loop chain becomes circular. We don't need to mine any more lithium, any more phosphate, any more nickel, cobalt, manganese, whatever it is you're using in your battery pack. The ACCC, or the Australian Consumer Watchdog, has said that car makers should be warned to keep the environmental impact of electric vehicle production in mind before marketing their cars as zero emissions. Now, they're acting as though internal combustion engine cars don't require any energy to manufacture. They don't require any emissions to manufacture. They all do, all cars do. The only difference is really here that, in my opinion, internal combustion engine vehicles can't really be properly recycled. That's why you see so many of them being crushed. Some of them can be, some parts of it can be, but it's nothing close to the recyclability of an EV. The ACCC says that automakers who market their electric cars as zero emissions could fall foul of Australian consumer law and be hit with financial penalties as the country's top watchdog cracks down on so-called greenwashing. The ACCC, Australian Consumer and Competition Commission, has advised car makers to consider the overall lifetime emissions of their vehicles before marketing them as environmentally friendly, not just what or what doesn't come out of the exhaust pipe. Now, obviously, the ACCC is not even remotely interested in finding out whether or not these cars were made by using solar or wind or battery power. By the way, it's worth mentioning the fact that there's enough solar, wind, and battery power now to power every single home in China. 1.35 billion, all of them. If all the fossil fuel power was turned off tomorrow, all of them could power their own homes with renewable energy. That's a fact. I'm not making that up. Now, of course, the manufacturing industry is still using fossil fuels, a lot of them. However, that is changing very, very quickly because China is installing more renewable energy than the rest of the world combined. Eventually, all your EVs, most of them are already made in China, eventually all of them will be made using renewable energy. So that's another good thing about them as well. The ACCC, the report published last month, intends to provide draft guidance for businesses in Australia. And it says companies must include the impacts of raw material sourcing, manufacturing, transport, and end-of-life solutions before claiming their products, such as electric vehicles, are zero emissions. In other words, there is not an EV now or ever in the mind of the government in Australia that will be zero emissions. According to the ACCC, companies don't have to provide a product's lifetime emissions in every claim they make, though the information provided to customers and consumers cannot be misleading. A failure to do so, it says, could mean companies are in contravention of Australian consumer law, which can lead to fines and penalties. The ACCC Environmental and Sustainability Claims Report provides an electric vehicle specific example of how a car maker's zero emissions claims could be labelled as false or misleading advertising. A business has begun designing and manufacturing electric vehicles and claims that it creates zero emission electric vehicles. The report says the claim only considers the emissions produced while the vehicle is being driven. It does not account for the emissions generated, for example, during the manufacturing process or when charging the vehicle. Now, how does the ACCC or the government know how you charge the vehicle? I don't understand why this would be included. This makes no sense. Hey, yeah, it's possible some people could charge their vehicles using, park up next to a coal power plant and just plug it into the plant and just use that only. I don't know. But some people could use only solar from there. Maybe they only charge at home. Maybe they only charge in places, cities that only use renewable energy. If you live in Adelaide, pretty good chance that if you're plugged into the grid, you're using only renewable. Same thing with Tasmania. Same thing with Canberra, ACT, capital of Australia. So I'm not really sure how the ACCC proposes that Tesla, Polestar, Hyundai, or any other electric car manufacturer would have the knowledge and information to know what their consumers of these vehicles are plugging into to be able to prove that it's zero emissions. How would they know that? Anyway, while it is true they said that the vehicle produces zero emissions while being driven, this claim risks creating the impression that the vehicle produces zero emissions for its entire life cycle and misleading consumers in contravention of the ACL. The business could instead qualify the claim that its vehicle produces zero exhaust emissions while driving. The ACCC noted Australian consumers are becoming more switched on about the carbon footprint of the products they buy, which includes electric cars, and warned companies not to greenwash their image to mislead consumers. So the ACCC is saying customers are getting more educated, they understand about the products, but then they're being misled by the companies. That seems to be a contradictory statement. Either the customers are informed or they're not informed. The ACCC seems to be implying that they're not informed, not that they are actually informed, as it previously said. Japanese carmaker Mitsubishi published data in April 2023 that showed electric vehicles are worse for the environment in Australia over their lifetime than petrol cars, based on current energy consumption and sourcing. I'll put a link to that article. It's on Drive. It's crazy. This is basically Mitsubishi on its last legs. It's just given up on the Chinese car market. It's realized its sales globally are nothing. They're abysmal. They're falling fast. And it's saying, woe is me. Let's just go after the new disruption. We've been disrupted by this new type of vehicle. Let's attack them. That's what Mitsubishi has done here with this ridiculous claim that EVs actually are worse for the environment than gasoline-powered vehicles. Maybe you could tell that to the millions of cancer sufferers, the millions of people who suffer from pollution from internal combustion cars that the World Health Organization say have died as a primary means of the pollution from those vehicles. While this report was based on Australia's current electricity supply, which around 67% is sourced from coal-fired power stations, all of which will be closed by 2035, it did not say at what point electric vehicles could become more environmentally friendly due to the greater adoption of renewable energy, or the fact that in surveys in Australia it shows that most EV owners actually have solar power on their roofs, and a lot of them use that solar power to recharge their EVs. In recent years, Japanese car giant Toyota has been campaigning for governments and car makers to adopt a more diverse approach to reducing vehicle emissions. It's really, the truth is, that's what drive.com.au said, but they're just being paid by Toyota to say this stuff. The truth is, Toyota has been campaigning against EVs privately and publicly for years now, especially to governments. It spends a lot of money lobbying governments to slow down adoption of EVs. The key reason is because only 0.3% of Toyota's vehicle sales worldwide were fully electric last year. Companies have been criticized for having no solely electric cars currently on sale in Australia. In particular, Japanese car companies. Instead, they've been focusing on the development of hybrid and plug-in hybrid petrol vehicles. But that said, they have just revealed the new Toyota Land Cruiser and the new Toyota Prado, and neither of them are either hybrid or electric. These are the new latest generation models of those vehicles. The ACCC is accepting feedback on its draft guidelines from the public until 15th of September 2023. But I honestly think that this is a big beat up. The ACCC clearly have an agenda here. I believe this arm of the government is basically peddling the narrative of big oil and possibly of fossil fuel companies, of possibly even automotive companies that are just not ready for electrification. They don't have any EVs for sale, therefore they want to slow down their adoption. And this is one of their ways of doing that. Maybe I'm reading this all wrong, and it's possible. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching.